That was the hardest part, she told Jamieson. It was so complicated. Perhaps if I knew more about the buildings, about what happened to them. She was embarrassed. I should pay more attention to the ruin song each year, she confessed. I was always so excited when it began.
Okay, we can hear you. You're good.
But
We
they
can hear you. We can see you. How are you?
would wander a bit. I don't always
We
listen.
miss you.
You were young, Jameson reminded her, and the song is very long. No one remembers every part, not especially not the Pikes.
Oh, good. Did your family pick up a computer for you? Yeah. Okay, good. I miss you guys. Okay. Miss Erica, we can't hear you.
You were very young, Jameson reminded her, and the song is very long. No one listens carefully to each part, and especially not the Tykes. This year I will, Kira told him. This year, I'll be paying special attention because I know the scenes so well. I'll be listening especially for this scene, buildings falling. Jameson closed his eyes. She could see his lips move silently. He started to hum, and she recognized the current melody from the part of the song. Then he began to chant aloud. Burn, scourged world, furious furnace, inferno impure. He opened his eyes. I believe that's the part, he said. It goes on and on after that. I forget the next words, but I believe that's the part where the buildings toppled. Of course, I've listened to this song many more years than you. I can't imagine how the singer remembers it all, Kira said. For a moment, she thought of asking about the captive child below, the singer of the future, who was being forced to learn the interminable song. She hesitated, and the moment passed. Of course, he has the staff as a guide, Jameson said, and he began learning when he was a small tyke. That was a very long time ago. He rehearses constantly. While you've been preparing his robe, you've been preparing this year's song. The words are always the same, of course, but that I believe he decides each year to emphasize certain parts. He studies all year, planning and rehearsing, singing all of it. Where? He has a special quarters in a different section of the edifice. I've never seen him except at the time of the song. No, he stays apart, turning into the robe, examining each section to be certain that Kira had missed nothing. A tender brought tea, and they sat together, talking of the talking of the robe and its stories, the history it told, time before ruin. Jameson closed his eyes again and recited, "Ravaged all Bogo Tabal, Timur Toron Toto Naugan, Tuto Naugan." Kira recognized the lines, some of her favorites, though she didn't understand them. Like the rhyming sound had charmed her out of boredom. She often felt during the interminable song, Bogo Tabal, Timur Toron, she had chanted to herself all times. What does it mean, that section? She asked Jameson now. I believe it means the names of the lost places he examined. I wonder what those places look like. Timor Toron. I like the sounds. That's part of your job, Jameson reminded her. You used the threads to remind us of how they looked. Kira nodded and smoothed the robe again, finding the tragic toppling cities and the interpressed meadows of soft greens. Jameson set his teacup on the table, went to the window, and looked down. The orders are finished. After the gathering in this year's song, you'll be able to start dyeing new threads for the robe. She looked up, dismayed, hoping to see by his expression that he was making a small joke. But his look was solemn. Kira thought when this work was complete, she could turn to her own projects, to some of the elaborate patterns that she could feel and see in her mind. Sometimes her fingers quivered with the desire to make those scenes. Will the robe become damaged during the song, that it will need repairing again? she asked him, trying not to show how distressing that thought was to her. She wanted to please him. He had been her protector, but she didn't want to keep doing this forever. No, no, his voice was reassuring. Your brother kept up with the small repairs each year, and now you're very capable. Redone the places that needed restoration. There will probably be only a few scattered broken threads for you to fix. Then, Kira was puzzled. Jameson reached towards the robe and gestured at the empty, unadorned expanse across the shoulders. Here lies the future, he said. And now you will tell it to us with your fingers and your threads, he told her. His eyes had a piercing, excited look. She tried to conceal her shock. So soon? She murmured. He referred to this enormous task before, but she had thought that when she was older, when she had more skill, more knowledge. We've waited a long time for you, he said, and looked at her firmly as if he dared her to refuse. It began early. At dawn, Kira could hear the sounds even from her room on the opposite side of the building. As she started to gather, quickly she finished dressing, pulled the brush through her hair, and ran to Thomas's room on the other side of the corridor. From there, they could look down at the plaza, where all large gatherings took place. Unlike the day of the hunt, this crowd was subdued. Even small tykes, usually so unruly, clung to the sides of their mothers' hands and waited quietly. The sound that had awakened Kira was not shouts and jostling, but simply the tread of feet as the people streamed up the narrow lanes and moved into the throng waiting to enter the building. From the fen path came a steady flow of silent citizens, clutching and leading their tykes from the opposite direction. From the area where Kira and her mother had lived came others who she had recognized from her old neighborhood. There was her mother's widowed brother with his boy Dan, but the small girl Mara was not with him. Perhaps she had been given away. On a typical day, families were scattered apart. Tykes scampered unsupervised, parents at work, but today hubbies stood by their wives, and the tykes with their families. The people seemed solemn and expectant. Where's the staff? Kira asked, looking around Thomas's room. Yesterday. Kira nodded. They had come and taken the robe yesterday as well. Weary though she was of the work, her room seemed so diminished with it gone. Should we go down? She asked him, though she didn't relish the prospect of joining the crowd. No, they said they'd come for us. I asked the tender who brought my breakfast. Look, Thomas pointed. Over there, way in the back. See by that tree just before the weaving shed? Is that Matt's mother? Kira followed his pointing finger with her eyes and found the same gaunt woman who had eyed them suspiciously from the squalor of the cot. Today she was washed and tidy. Besides her, holding her hand, was a tyke who looked so much like Matt. The two stood as waiting as a family, but there was no second child, no Matt. A wave of sorrow swept through Kira, a feeling of loss. Looking down at the sea of faces, Kira gradually recognized people here and there, the weaving women separate from each other, each with a hubby and children. The butcher clean for a change with his large wife and two small sons. The entire village had gathered now, only a few stragglers still hurrying up the lanes. A small surge of movement began. She could see that people were shuffling forward. The crowd rippled like water moving through on the water brink when a log floated by. The doors must have opened, Thomas said, leaning forward to see. They watched as the entire village, person by person, entered the building. Finally, when the crowd outside was mostly gone, and now they could hear the murmur of voices and the shuffle of footsteps below, inside the building. A tender appeared in Thomas's doorway and beckoned. It's time, the tender said. Except for a quick peek through a cracked open door when she looked at Jameson one afternoon, Kira had not seen inside the Council of Guardians Hall since the day of her trials months before. The circumstances had been so different then. When she entered the cavernous room and limped alone down into the central aisle, hungry, lonely, and fearful for her life. Today she learned, as she had that day, on her stick. But now she was clean, healthy, and unafraid. Today she and Thomas were brought through a side entrance near the front, so that they saw the faces of the village watching them. The tender pointed, directing them to a row of the 3 wooden chairs on the left. Just below them, the stage, facing the audience. Kira could see that there was another long row of chairs on the opposite side, and she recognized the Council of Guardians members who were already seated there. Jameson was among them. Quickly reminding herself of the custom, she bowed her head towards the worship object on the stage. Then she followed Thomas, and together they took their places in two chairs. A murmur passed through the audience, and Kira felt her face flush with embarrassment. She didn't like being singled out. She didn't want to sit here at the front. She remembered the derisive voice of one of the weavers only a few days before. "You do not need us no more," the woman had called. "It's not true. I need all of you. We need each other." Gazing at the crowded audience, Kira remembered the many past when she had dutifully with her mother to the gathering. Always they sat in the back where she couldn't see or hear, and endured the event bored and restless, sometimes kneeling on her seat to try and peer around the spectators' shoulders and catch a glimpse of the singer. Her mother, she remembered, had always been attentive and had gently restrained her when she wriggled in the seat. The gathering and the song were long and difficult for Tykes. The people in the crowded audience, who though respectful had been shifting in their seats, whispering. Quieted completely when Kira and Thomas entered and took their places, everyone waited. Finally, in the silence, the four-syllable chief guardian, whom Kira had not seen since the trial, whose name still could not be recalled. Was it Bartholomew, perhaps? Rose from his seat and on the other side. He walked to the space at the front of the